City of Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission meeting, recorded, March 9, 2021.
I will call to order the March 9th meeting of the Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission. Leanne, would you be kind enough to call the roll, please?
Carlson?
I'm here.
Kirschling?
Here.
Moore?
Here.
Ostrowski?
Here.
Westcott?
I am present. I don't have a president's report, so I'm going to move to item 3, which is the update on the COVID-19 response in the community. Our fire, police, and EMS services remain busy. So let me begin by recognizing Fire Chief Bob Finn, and then Tom, I'll come up to you, Chief Zenner. But Chief Finn, you and Assistant Chief Gemza have the floor.
I'm going to turn this over to Chief Gemza, sir.
All right. Assistant Chief Joseph Genza, where are you, Joe? There you are.
Right there.
All right.
Hi. Thank you guys for giving me the time to talk about COVID-19. Just a quick update in case you guys did not see it. The CDC did send out new guidelines for people who have completed their vaccine. We are excited about that at the department, and I think the public at large should be excited about that. To date, about 10.5%, I believe, people of Wisconsin have been vaccinated. We currently have one of our firefighter paramedics over at the CDC, not at the health department, sorry, helping with vaccines for the community. As you know, the president did announce that by the end of May, he anticipated having enough vaccines to vaccinate the entire country. One of the misnomers with that is that we don't really have a full plan for that. We might have the vaccines. So I think really we want to start focusing on what happens when we start getting more vaccines in and what versions they might be. So with that said, that's kind of exciting. Chief Finn and I and Assistant Chief Moody had discussed today briefly about what the new CDC guidelines will make the firehouse look like. We are excited. We are going to be meeting at staff tomorrow to come up with a new guideline and set out a new policy for the FD personnel for those who are vaccinated and what to do in the common areas. So that is exciting news for us. We did receive our shipment of N95 Reusable Masks, which should help relieve some of the pressure for PPE. These the county purchased with CARES Act funds. Each member of our department will be fit tested and they will receive an N95. These are the type of masks that have a gel fit and they're reusable for each use after they get washed. So we thought that would be a better decision instead of throwing away PPE if need be. So that's where we are with that. As far as Commissioner Westcott, you asked me to look into the flu and how that has affected the COVID-19 or vice versa. So I spoke with our medical director, asked him for an update. And as of yesterday, the update was that they're seeing very little flu. But the caveat is that they are not currently doing a lot of testing for flu. Right now, if they are testing for COVID-19. But it has had very little effect with the healthcare system at this point in the game. So that's where I am with the COVID-19 update. As far as beds in use in the hospitals in our area, we are about 73%. And if you remember, about a month ago to 2 months ago, we were at 90 to 87%. So you can see that number has gone down. We've been very happy with, I guess what you say, with the vaccine and the people's commitment to ensuring their distancing and their behaviors regarding washing and mask wearing. And as we can see that things are starting to, I guess, get a little sunnier in the springtime in Wisconsin. So that's what I have as of right now. Do you have any specific questions?
Joe, I have just a couple. Can you talk a little bit about where we're seeing what you're reporting, both nationally and in the state, those trend lines for the COVID that we've been talking about, but we're also seeing some indicators of the variants. Are we seeing any of that? And so I saw that one of the variants had been tested positive. I think it was in Wapaka County. I saw that yesterday. You want to talk a little bit about that, please?
So as of right now, I've been informed that we have not seen any variant in Portage County. However, the biggest concern that we want to be aware of would be vaccination. Knowing that the Pfizer and Moderna, they're confident can control the variant. The second thing would be your travel and where you're at when you do travel. So if you do leave your home area, what are you doing when you're out of that home area, and who are you interacting with? And again, remember the CDC did send out a double mask as saying that is effective way to prevent the spread of COVID-19 also.
All right, question either for you or Chief Finn. Are we still using specifically designated ambulances for COVID transport exclusively?
I could speak on that. As of right now, it really depends on what the call is. The long-term care facilities have plateaued as far as their concerns of the spread of COVID-19. We currently now have the hand sprayers with that's electronically charged the ions to the chemicals to decontaminate the ambulance. So really, if they get told that, then yes. And again, we're only as good as the information that we're given at that time.
Are there questions for Assistant Chief Gemsen? Chief Zenner, how about on the police department operations? How are we doing over there?
Well, we're doing good. What we're seeing now is one thing, we ended up having our records personnel report back to duty. They were working a modified schedule, coming in for 2 hours and 6 hours working from home. But now we have all three back at the front. We're operating at full capacity. We're also seeing more and more activity happening, auxiliary that's getting called to events. They've been working the hockey games, although there's no people at the hockey games, but they've been calling our auxiliary in to assist with security. So slowly but surely, we're seeing some things creep back to normal, I guess, or at least the new normal that we know of. So.
Are there questions for Chief Zenner? Well, I think we all would concur, with both chiefs and the assistant chief, that at least at this time, we have reason to remain optimistic. I think we can see light at the end of the tunnel. Joseph, you might have better numbers, but the last I saw is something like 45% of the people in Wisconsin over the age of 65, I should have brought that data from my other desk, have had at least one of the immunizations. It might be a little higher by now. Have you heard something?
Sorry. Okay, I'm not muted. No, I've not heard the actual numbers on that. I would love to get them if you had them, because
sure,
that's a real good test of where we are.
Yeah, and I think it was, the last I saw the data was from last Thursday or Friday. It was about 42% of all citizens in Wisconsin over the age of 65 had at least one. Of course, all the immunizations in Wisconsin are the 2 injections, because they're only administering Pfizer and Moderna, although I guess Johnson & Johnson has gone online. So, all right, anything else? Good. I'll get you that data, Joseph. It's over on my other computer. All right, let's move to item 4, which is the 2020 annual report from the Stevens Point Police Department. With that, I'm going to recognize Chief Zenner. Thomas?
Thank you much. I'm going to boot up our PowerPoint. Hopefully, does everybody see that?
I do.
Yes.
Okay. This is our 2020 annual report. First thing I want to talk about is obviously what makes our police department great, and that's the people that work here. we had quite a bit of turnover last year. In particular, we want to look at retirements. This gets tougher every year because obviously as I get older, I'm seeing people I spent a good part of my career with, and they're retiring. They're going out the door. When we have Gary Anderson, Pat Stanislawski, both a significant amount of years experience working for our city, served honorably. But in particular, we look at Ed Eggleston, and if you see that photo on the side, that's a flag ceremony that we hold for sworn personnel during their retirement. And Ed, although he spent probably 10 years working in our IT, he previously, before that position, worked as a sworn officer. He retired from the law enforcement side with as a lieutenant. But together, public service, 43 years for the city of Stevens Point. He started his career in 1976. That alone, very significant, and we're going to miss him. But obviously, we're all replaceable. We do have some new hires that have come in: Kevin Gomez, Kimberly DeRoser, and Zachary Gartman, and Cody Stankowski, all four, as we've reported through on our monthly stats, have obviously finished the field training program and are operating solo and are doing an outstanding job.
Not to jump in, Tom, but Ed started 1979.
I thought it was 76.
Nope, 1979, February.
Oh, geez. You know, this is my annual report, so I'm going to mute you right over there.
All right.
Okay, significant events for 2020. Is a defining year, we'll say that. Obviously, the internal investigation, COVID, and civil unrest. Early last year, February 26, we were involved in an internal investigation, and it was a difficult time, painful, and ultimately thrust several people within this police department into a leadership roles that really limited preparedness for the significant events that were to come. I don't know if anyone, though, would be prepared for the events that came that will probably follow history with 2020, and that's COVID. We're talking about it today. We start each monthly PFC meeting discussing COVID, and really looking back at the early stages, it was establishing a new normal. It's sometimes reflecting back to those early moments. The thing that sticks out in my head was receiving calls from Health and Human Services, public health officer, discussing an individual that was failing to quarantine, and law enforcement would respond, and the concern that we would have, to get fully suited up with PPE, and to really go back to that time, one forgets it was scary. You had no idea really what you were wrapping your head around, this new situation that you read about in history books, I guess was the best way to explain it. When you're looking at quarantines from back in the day, are the Spanish flu of 1918, that became a topic that we discussed this year. But really looking back at the pandemic and how it affected the police department, establishing a new normal, identifying what duties in law enforcement were essential, shutting down our front lobby March 16th. It was just trying to draw from experiences in the past became difficult during that process, and really proud of the department and the personnel here of where we, how we came through this and where we're at today. And then ultimately, obviously, the civil unrest following the death of George Floyd and the protests that followed. We seen that within our own community, and once again, to go over things that we hadn't experienced in my career, where our entire police department was on standby. The mutual aid requests that followed through. We had Portage County, Plover PD step up to assist us. We had the Marathon County task force that came to assist. Just a very unique time and things that we learned from as a department. The mandatory training during COVID became very difficult because they didn't have training. We were reaching out to online training opportunities that helped us move forward on developing a training cadre within our current instructors that from this day moving forward will be trained and are able to train us on implicit bias de-escalation training through our use of force, the policies that we went through, and which culminated now to the point of monthly reporting, as you see with a chief's report that has suddenly become 3 pages. But we're at the forefront. I'm proud to say our department in reporting of our use of force incidents. I don't know of other agencies that report on a monthly basis to their PFC in detail that we do. That's something that we're proud of. But enough about that, we go to the stats. Everybody loves stats. This has been an interesting year of looking at our numbers and trying to balance that to past years. It's enforcement efforts of how we've changed just this year, and the fact that people have pretty much been locked in their houses. So obviously there's several of these that have, we've noticed a decrease, other than some interesting ones that have popped up, but they coincide with individuals staying at home more. We have noise complaints that were an increase. An interesting one that had jumped up was trespassing. And I noticed on a slide that we'll get to top 25 calls. I think we have seen increases with complaints or cases involving a transient population. And I believe some of those numbers could directly reflect upon that. And this was, we started this, I believe, 2 years ago, just essentially a comparison to police departments within our immediate area. Obviously, Stevens Point is a bigger community, larger than the other municipalities listed. And more typically, we'll be responding to more calls for service, particular calls for service than a sheriff's department. But didn't really see any numbers that jumped out in comparison. Once again, some of these numbers may be skewed just as we've gone through COVID through the years. But and if you look in our annual report, I believe we have 2018 listed also for a comparison. Citations totaled.
Then if you go down to 0.16.1, that is state traffic laws and rules adopted, which is their provision like our 9.0.
I do not know where that's coming from, so. Okay. Looking at our citation totals again, this is reflective upon some of the tasks that we have assigned our officers and also the traffic that was out there. I know Commissioner Carlson reached out to me concerning all other citations. That is reflective of what you may have recalled back in the day. You'd see several safety belt citations issued. This is the day and age of no insurance card or not insurance identification on them. That's probably coincides closely with the amount of speed warnings that we have, that I would assume that number is closely associated with. But across the board, these numbers, obviously total citations significantly down. And again, if anybody has any questions during this, please jump in. So, traffic accident summary. Again, numbers went down. What we do not have listed within this And I usually have this question asked is how many bike accidents did we have? It would have been 4. I don't have it in this list, but it is written in our annual report. We had 4 bicycle accidents last year.
Tom, could those others be also parking tickets? Would they be in on that?
No.
No.
Well, they could if it was in tracks. That would have been listed, but no, that would not be within the other citations.
Okay.
Top 25 incident locations. Again, I was talking earlier, some of those tickets. What jumped out on this, we do see some areas, the area parks, Knights Inn, Point Motel. These calls typically relate to some of our transient population and calls. In particular, Point Motel is at this point within the chronic nuisance abatement program, and we're currently going through that and working with community development and the city attorney's office. And I can leave it on the screen for a little bit. Everybody take a look.
Why aren't they doing anything with the Knights Inn then?
Depending on the calls or it depends on within the ordinance what the particular calls are. There's a very specific calls that we would need to respond to. It would have to be calls that were not from the business owner. Domestic related wouldn't fall into that. We don't want to re-victimize the victim. And also the time frame, there would be need to be generally, I should say, 3 calls within a 60-day period.
Okay.
So you may see some of these have a higher number of calls, but we also might have these locations, the calls are being generated by the manager, so to speak.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Tom, when you have the 320 at police headquarters, how to explain that one?
That's walk-in complaints.
Okay.
Whoever reports to the police department as a walk-in, generally that'll get tagged, no different like St. Michael's Hospital. That's just the response there. But every year you're going to see the Stevens Point Police Department listed at the top of this sheet. That is by far and large our highest call for service. Essentially, it's a walk-in.
Alderperson Kneebone, you had a question?
Chief, yeah, I find it hard to believe that Brookdale Assisted Living is the home of the aged version of the Jets and the Sharks. I hope that those 43 incidents are minor in their scope and not something too bad.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that, and I looked at this quick because I was going to try to get some, feedback. That would be, I'm going to be delicate how I put this. We have emergency commitments that we respond to, mental health calls for service. And there's some concerns that I would say I frankly don't or feel that doesn't belong within the statute of a Chapter 51, as we call it, or an emergency commitment. However, we've been utilized in that case from time to time, and it may be dementia, it may be Alzheimer's, and ultimately, I'll just say there's some calls that number should not be there. And I think we've had conversations in the past. It is significant to see that on this list. Again, though, some of these calls for service, just because of COVID, where you look at Ben Franklin, PJ Jacobs, Spash, I'm looking at this, I don't even believe, nope, it is up there on the top. Normally, you're going to see the schools, and that's because we have a school resource officer working within the schools. They'll normally be within the top 5. And school's obviously been out of session, so they've fallen down. Yeah, looking at Brookdale Assisted Living, that's going to be some stuff that I'll be following up on. Thank you.
Tom, could those be ambulance assist also?
No.
No?
Well, I take that back. Depending on if it is an officer assist, normally officers are not assisting in those calls. I do know at that within those locations, we've been dealing more and more with the emergency commitment side of things.
Okay.
I see you've got a couple gas stations listed there. Is that drive-offs? Is that disorderly conduct?
Well, I would, a couple things that obviously some of them, but not very few probably involve gas drive-offs. We do have officers that make, we want them to reach out, have public outreach to businesses, and Quick Trip seems to be a happening place to reach out to our area communities. I think it has to do a whole lot with they sell coffee. That probably increases the calls that we make community contacts at those locations.
Okay.
Anything else jump out, or are we good?
Move along.
Okay, that is also listed in our annual report, as well as drug enforcement. We have seen some decreases, obviously, once again, in our drug enforcement. We have seen, continue to see and respond to multiple overdose calls. This has been an increase, and actually earlier today, I had the assistant chief give me a performance review that I did not get into the chief's report, but it involved a life-saving measure. One of our officers last month administering Narcan and doing CPR on a heroin overdose. It's unfortunate call that seems to be increasing, and we're becoming more and more experienced in. Any questions there? Last, I think this is going to be our last slide. Use of force review. Again, something I'm very proud of. Our department is at the forefront of use of force reporting. Actually, we worked with our records management system through TRACS is what they call it. Has just begun doing use of force reporting at a very minimal level compared to what we report. And this, again, something that we're very proud of. And we had last year 61 documented use of force incidents. This has continued to drop. And I want to point out where we call it a use of force, and it's simply an officer pointing their service revolver or pistol revolver. Wow, I'm really going back in time today. Service handgun is a use of force. It's reported. So we have talked about previously at previous PFC meetings, we have had an increase in pursuits, vehicle pursuits. Kind of touch on that. Just this past weekend, we had 3 vehicle pursuits in the Stevens Point area, 2 from our police department, 1 was state patrol. The actions that we take within those is reported as a use of force. As you see, we had 6 incidents where we did a pit maneuver. 2 times we used road spikes. Each one of those are a use of force reporting incident. 36 displays of duty firearm. We never shot, obviously, our firearms, but that's still a use of force, and we do collect that data. All of these, and actually the information that I get that I provide you in the monthly report, comes from Lieutenant Joe Johnson. He's our master DAT instructor, defense and arrest tactics, and he is also the head of our use of force review program. all of that data he compiles, he checks into each one of these cases to ensure we're within policy. And if there's something that is of a concern, a training concern, he informs us. And it's an excellent program, something that I think our city should be thankful that and proud that we're doing.
First of all, I'm very happy with the use of force reporting. I think it's very insightful, very educational for a lot of people. And excuse me for this again, Tom, I'm sort of a stat guy with everything, but are there 61? Because that adds up to a lot more than 61.
There's 61 incidents, but within that incidents, actually, if we could go down to, if you look at pursuit intervention tactics, I have 6 pit maneuvers, but it was 2 incidents. So
Okay.
you may see
Gotcha.
one incident involve a compliance hold, an active countermeasure, and a taser use.
Gotcha.
So there's obviously, adding this up would be more, but it's a result of 61 calls for service.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anyone have any questions? And there's our plug for our website as of today, and approval of the Police and Fire Commission. I will reach out to John Quirk and have our annual report placed on our website.
Chief, refresh my memory. Do we distribute this report to the alderpersons and mayor too?
We used to.
I believe we did, yes. And I can kick that out before we get that posted. I can for 1 week, and then next week have this available on our website.
I would recommend you certainly share this with the office of the mayor, the office of the city attorney, and our 11 alderpersons. Would you concur, Alderperson Nebo?
In fact, I just had written a note to mention this at my 3 minutes ahead of council to have everybody check it out. So yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I'm going to put it on my district Facebook page too, a link. So I think it's definitely something to be proud of. So the more people that can see how good we're doing, that's important.
And I would certainly agree with Commissioner Moore. I know the years that I was in the mayor's office, and Jerry, you can speak to that as alderperson. I'm pretty sure I always received these reports and asked that they be shared. Those are the old days, Tom, where it was actually in paper, and so now we do things normally electronically. So good. And I certainly would concur with what Alderperson Nebone said. When you have an opportunity to read the full report, to take time to study it, you realize how advanced in so many areas this community is with its policing and its transparency and documentation, and the emphasis not only from this commission but from the leadership in police for training and the additional ongoing continuing education, that we don't basically rest on our laurels. And you and your management team, both sworn and civilian, need to be again publicly complimented for the work that is being done by all the men and women of the Stevens Point Police Department. So well done.
Thank you much. I will get that out after this meeting. I'll send it off to the mayor and the alders, and then release to the public via our website.
Yeah,
now
I think it's
figure out how to get out of sharing a screen.
And Alderperson Nebone, thank you for at least agreeing to talk a little bit about it in front of the council meeting. So well done. All right. Are there any other questions? Jerry, I'm sorry. I didn't see
Do we
you.
need a motion to accept the report and place it on file?
Absolutely. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Ostrowski. All in favor of accepting the report and placing it on file? Commissioners, please say aye.
Aye.
We'll say no. Well done to all. Thank you, former Alderperson Moore, who reminded me to do that. Thank you, sir. All right. With that said, let's move to the approval of the minutes. Commissioners, you have minutes reflecting the actions taken by the Police and Fire Commission February 2nd, February 10th, and February 19th. Leanne, you've done a usual masterful job of documenting the work of this commission. And it's becoming a lot more work for you to document everything we're doing. We understand that. I think you've done a spectacular job with these minutes. So thank you. Commissioners, do you have any editorial comments, alterations, corrections?
Move to accept the minutes.
I would second that.
You're moving all three, right, Commissioner?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'd second all three.
All right, thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 6, the confirmation of the bills. Members of the commission, you have the bills sent to you. Robert, you want to go first?
Well, surprisingly, Robert doesn't have much to say. I just looked through everything. The only question I had is, I did notice the, I think it was the heaters at the fire station 1. Did we have a completely loss on them? Because I see we got about several $1,000s worth of heaters. What was the problem?
The offices were not getting heat, so we had someone come in and put in thermostats so we control the front office, administrative assistant, Chief Gems's office, and the watch office.
Were those put on the roof, Bob? Or how are they doing?
I believe they were tied into the current system because they have thermostats. There
Okay.
just wasn't enough registers.
Hey, is this starting a trend? I noticed Fire Station 1's expenses like that are going fairly regularly. Does the station need some looking at?
No, actually, we're in pretty good shape. It's a big building.
This was typical maintenance, in other words, or
Well-
wear out, I should say.
To be perfectly honest, the people in the front office have been freezing for the last 3 years. We finally found the money to do it.
Thank you. That's what I kind of had a hunch. No, Gary, I do not see, Mr. President, I do not see anything else that brings to my mind any worries.
I couldn't find any either. So Commissioner Carlson, Moore, Kirschling, any thoughts, comments?
No, if Bob okays it, I can go to sleep tonight.
All right, I will move approval of the bills submitted to the commission from police, fire, and ambulance. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Carlson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Both say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, discussion of the new hiring standards, the fire department. Bob, I'm gonna turn this over to you. I don't have anything on this, so I'll defer to you here.
We go to number 7 first and approve the list because they kind of tie in together. Approval
Discussion of the new, I'm sorry, I meant approval of the fire department eligibility list. I misread it. My mistake, Bob. My mistake. Yes, item 7, the approval of the fire department eligibility list. Chief Finn?
Usually when we meet in person, I present the list to you. Police and Fire Commission's administrative rules say that you have to approve the list. We have a list of 1 candidate that I would like you to approve as of today. And with the same change that we had during the COVID, the person on the list is a firefighter and will be finishing up his paramedic school in May. So I would like to, after approval of the list, get him through the hiring process with an approximate start date of May 1st. His paramedic stuff would be at the end of May, full knowing that he's got to become a medic within 1 year of date of hire.
You're expecting that will be satisfied by the end of May of this year.
He is in school. He's finishing up his class at the end of May of this year. Yes, sir. Then he would have to take his national registry test.
So he would take the national registry. We still take state too, don't we?
Yes. No, I think it's just national registry, and that covers both. The national registry covers national and the state of Wisconsin.
Okay. Trevor Howard was nodding his head yes, so I'm feeling good about it. Thank you.
Bob, let me understand. He's currently a fighter right now
Yes, sir.
with our department?
No. He's a state certified firefighter too. This is what we did during the COVID when we hired a couple people that were not medics, but were firefighters. And then They became medics within the first 6 weeks of being on the job.
Okay.
And this plays right into number 8. So after you approve, if you approve it, I can explain more under number 8. This is something that the Police and Fire Commission has done in the past.
Would this bring us back to full strength, Bob?
No, sir. We are having 5 people leave. 1's left and 4 more are leaving within the next 4 weeks.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the commission for Chief Finn? Bob, what are we doing to expand and add to the eligibility list moving forward?
Do you want to discuss that now, or that's part of number 8? Am I talking number 8?
Well, I'll tell you what, man, I think that's a good point. I'm going to move approval of the eligibility list that you're submitting with the caveat that the applicant will complete and be a licensed paramedic. He completes his EMS training, paramedic training, by the end of May of 2021. And with that caveat, I would move approval of the eligibility list. Is there a second?
Can we stop for a second? Oh, sorry. Am I allowed?
Let me get a second first, and Joseph, I'll recognize.
20 seconds.
Can I have a second? Commissioner Joseph?
Yep.
I believe he would have 1 year to complete his paramedic, not to be done by the end of May 2021.
Okay, then maybe we're getting a little confused here. It's my understanding he will have completed the training by May of 21.
Yes,
But he'd have a year to successfully complete the licensure.
that is correct.
All right. How often can you write for the paramedic license?
3 times.
Right. Okay.
And each
All right.
time, so if they don't make it the first time, there's a wait time before they can take it again. So you couldn't just keep redoing it.
Right. I actually remembered that, Joseph. You should be proud of me. All right. All right. That's the motion with the caveat attached to it. Second by Commissioner Kirschling. Leanne, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right, Chief, item 8 is the discussion of the new hiring standards for the fire department.
Well, maybe you don't know, but the police and fire departments, not just through central Wisconsin, not for the state of Wisconsin, but throughout the whole country, are having trouble getting qualified candidates to come and apply for their positions. It's just the way the population is today. Currently, we have you have to be, well, basically what we just talked about is what our hiring standards, I would like to change to that. If you are a paramedic and not a firefighter 1, we will hire you knowing that you have to be a firefighter 2 within the first year of hire. The reason we're allowed to do this is because of the training officer's position, who's a certified instructor, and he could, in about a 6 to 8 week period, get that probationary firefighter to firefighter 2 application. Or get the firefighter 2 to be able to take the state exam. And vice versa, if they are a firefighter 2, and they're in paramedic school, we like to accept them knowing that they have to become a paramedic within the first year. The reason we're talking about this is that this is the trend of all fire departments, not just in this area, but throughout the state. Training officer, Division Chief Howard did an extensive research on this, and when I'm done, I'll let him fill you in on some of the research he has found. You know, back in the days, guys used to apply for 15 departments and get hired and then go. That's no longer happening. So I feel if we do not change the way we're hiring, we're behind the times. And it's hard enough to hire and keep good personnel. So I think this would be the right step into getting more personnel into the Stevens Point Fire Department. I'll turn it over to Division Chief Howard, who, oh, and by the way, we are running our own test. We like to get the change qualifications out starting tomorrow through GeoGov. We also are going to talk tomorrow about CVTC in Fox Valley, if we're going to go back to them with our new hiring with these new qualifications. The administrative laws say that I let you guys know about the procedures, and we kind of set the qualifications. So I'm trying to let you guys know why we're doing this. Is to get, people are now applying for the department they want to go to. They're not applying for the 12 anymore. And we got to keep up with our surrounding fire departments, because this is what they're doing. And I'll turn it over to Division Street.
Everybody, before we do that, Rod, I'll come to you before we go to Division Chief. Bob, for the sake of those who are watching or will watch this meeting, would you just quickly redefine for those who may not know the difference between Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2? I think every commissioner and most people know what a paramedic is. And you're right, we hire them to be paramedics, but I don't know that it's universally understood, Firefighter 1 versus Firefighter 2. And Commissioner Carlson, that might have been your question?
Exactly. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, just quickly, the difference between 1 and 2.
Let Division Chief Howard talk about that, because he can cite it verbatim, or I might be off a couple numbers. So, Trevor?
Go ahead, Trevor. First, let's start with, just for those of you, for those watching or will watch, and we hear you folks referencing Firefighter 1 versus Firefighter 2. What's the difference?
Correct. So essentially, to be a firefighter in the state of Wisconsin, there are three different levels, but they start out with an entry level, which would allow you to do basic firefighter functions. It goes to Firefighter 1, and then Firefighter 2 is the highest category in the state of Wisconsin. Firefighter 1 is a 96-hour course that incorporates that entry-level firefighter, and that would allow individuals to enter a burning structure, and basically that would allow, for our purposes at the Stevens Point Fire Department, would allow them to perform their duties as a probationary firefighter and paramedic. Again, if they have their Firefighter 1 and their paramedic license, they would have all the skills necessary to work as a firefighter paramedic for our department. And previously we have always required a Fire 2, which gets more extensive into some different fire attack strategies and tactics, and vehicle extrication, and some of these other things. But those are, Fire 2 is a 42-hour course that would be, again, with the luxury of having our training officer now at the fire department, would be something that we would be able to accomplish internally.
Thank you, Trevor. And what is your research showing as far as what other departments, full-time, full-service departments are doing?
So the data from the CVTC historically, and again, I'm from the west side of the state, so I didn't know anything about the Fox Valley process growing up. So all of my familiarity comes from the CVTC process. But throughout my years in the fire service, 15 years in the fire service, is that there are 12 different departments in the state that go through the Chippewa Valley Technical College to hire candidates, and they have a regional hiring process. And historically, I believe from 2000 to 2016, they found that the majority of applicants would apply for all 12 departments, with the knowing that they would need to relocate to work for those departments. Over the last 5 years, number one, the number of applicants in the last 5 years, the number of applicants for our profession has dropped by 50%. So they're no longer seeing the number of applicants to begin with. And number two, instead of applying for all 12 departments on the list, the applicants are applying for, on average, 1 to 3 departments. So they're no longer looking to get a job anywhere. With the majority of departments in the nation being short short-staffed, candidates know that they are more than likely going to get a job where they want to work. They no longer have there's no longer the competition for the jobs. So they're no longer willing to relocate for a job, knowing they have a good chance of getting a job closer to home if that's where they choose to be.
You had mentioned that this is a trend line you've been watching or certainly have tracked for a while here. What happened? What changed? Just fewer folks going into fire service?
Fewer overall, correct.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Fewer overall. If you look at the numbers, and Mid-State has just recently, they just put their certified fire program. They started a few years ago, but they have not had, I think their first year they had 6 candidates. The second year they had 4. And I believe this year they have 3. There just aren't the candidates out there that want to be in the fire service. And I believe across the state, all of the tech schools are seeing a similar trend that the candidates that are interested in public safety are just not as prevalent as they have been in the past. And that's why we talked about, going to a Fire 1 certification and a paramedic certification will hopefully get quality candidates in the door that are good people that we can train to the standard we feel is necessary.
Commissioner Ostrowski?
This could be a question for either Chief or for Trevor. Is our overall goal, even with these changes, our overall goal is for every firefighter on our department to end up a firefighter 2 with paramedic status? Is that still our prime goal?
The goal is that they must obtain either the paramedic or the firefighter 2 within the first day of fire, or they will not pass probation. So this is getting them in earlier. We get to train them, but they still have to have the qualifications to maintain the job after the first year.
Okay, but I mean, the end result is that every one of our guys would be a fighter paramedic.
Yes.
Which I have always been proud of in Stevens Point, and I think it speaks well of the service. So anything we can do to get back to that, I'm in favor of.
Yes.
I can see where the manpower thing is a problem. I mean, you got the statistics out there, you've talked to other departments, so that actually it shows that it's not us, it's a national trend.
And we're going to maintain a 2 paramedic system.
Generally speaking, how long does it take to go from a firefighter 1 to a firefighter 2? What is the training curve on that?
It's a 42-hour course. So depending on the majority, if you're at the tech school, it'll be different. The majority of my experience is with volunteer departments and teaching for volunteer departments. They generally do a Fire 2 course 1 night a week for 4 months or 2 months approximately. I can't remember the exact length of the course, but until they get to their 40 hours. So at our department, with my position being able to run them through a 40-hour course, if we truly pushed it, we would be able to do it in a couple of weeks, I would say. But then the biggest problem, and especially lately due to COVID, has been finding a state test. They still have to go through, they have to take a state written test, and they have to take a state practical test. And scheduling the tests with COVID has been difficult. I know there are a lot of people around that are looking for tests at this point. So that would be, I guess, in my opinion, the biggest difficulty would be getting them into a testing site and getting them through the state tests.
Commissioner Moore?
After we train these people and put our time and our effort into it, are we doing anything to retain them so that we're not losing an asset that we spend all this time and energy and effort on, that they're not going off to some other departments because of it?
Well, we always want to retain our employees because we all think they're good employees. And,
absolutely.
We can get into some of the reasons why people are leaving at a different date. but
I'm just saying it's something we need to be aware of. I'm not trying to dig into reasons they're leaving. I'm just
well,
saying.
no, we're very aware of it, and this is why we're trying to do what we're doing. Also, you know, is be a little different from the different departments to show that we are unique. We are, we have integrity here. It's teamwork here, and we can instill that into them when they're coming in the door.
Chief, I like expanding the qualifications to allow more people to get in that door. But you said something, I think you said 4 people are leaving by April. Are those retirements or are they going to different departments?
They're all going to different departments.
Okay, all right.
Let me ask you, let me reframe the question for you, Chief. Based on what you reported to the commission 10 minutes ago, it, I think, is logical that once, and this may be where Commissioner Moore was going, that once they are trained firefighter to have paramedic status, they're a pretty marketable commodity in the firefighting EMS world as far as specialty. And other departments, as you reported, are going through shortage issues, recruitment issues. These firefighter paramedics, the men and women of our service, can pretty well pick and choose their next job and be probably in the competition. Would that be a fair summary?
That's a pretty fair summary. And the trend, like Training Division Chief Howard said, the trend was, and even we have, and I have an email from CVTC that one data point that is not captured with these statistics is back in the early 2000s, like 2010 to 2015, candidates traditionally applied, if not all, to the FDs in their consortium. They wanted a job and were willing to relocate to make that happen. This caused the candidates leaving a few years to return home with their local fire departments. Chiefs showed their displeasure, and now they're only applying to 1 or 3 departments instead of the 12. So hopefully by change, all we're doing is changing the way to apply for the job. The qualifications at the end of the day, everything's going to remain the same. That the 1 to 3 people that are applying here now, or the people that are applying to 1 to 3 departments, are the ones that are going to want to be here and not leave. And then we can get them, we can be competitive with other departments that are doing the same thing. Because if we don't change, these people are going to go to different departments.
Well, one of the things that I have heard over the years from fire chiefs, various police chiefs, Commissioner Carlson has referenced it from his experiences in law enforcement, is there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest any longer in starting and finishing at the same department. That you begin, you get your training, get your experience, fortify your resume, and then you move up and move on. Is Ron, would you agree with that from your experiences in law enforcement?
I think it's just the nature of the beast. I think of baseball. Very few players stay on the same team throughout their career. It's very similar. People are more mobile. They want to go where they want to go and work where they want to work.
Chief Finn?
I agree with Commissioner Carlson. I think we get a lot of #1 draft picks, and I don't want to lose them. And I'm hoping that by doing this, we're going to get the people that are committed to the Stevens Point Fire Department in the city of Stevens Point. Because, like I said, if we do not change our requirements, the departments around us we're going to lose out on a lot of good candidates, potential candidates.
I think this is a growing trend, and it's not just in the fire department, that the younger crowd is being much more selective about where they want to be in all positions. And I think the city as a whole has to pay attention to this one in ways that hiring are going on, and that, because if we spend a lot of money on these people, it would be nice to retain as many of them as we possibly can. It's just something we all need to be aware of, is what I'm saying.
Well, I think that's a really good point. Commissioner Moore. You know, the reality is all of the commissioners are keenly aware of is we can aggressively recruit, as Chief Finn said, you know, the all-stars, get them here, get them trained. But when they move to the Madison, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Eau Claire, La Crosse markets, they're going to be compensated at a much higher level than the city of Stevens Point's going to be able to compensate them. I mean, you and I have been aware of that for a long time, Jerry.
It's gone on for quite a while. It just seems to be getting much worse lately.
And not only that, but the applicant pool, I think Trevor said it earlier, the applicant pool for both police and fire, it isn't like it used to be, where you'd have big numbers applying. They're not there, I don't think, anymore.
All right. Chief, do you want a formal motion to adopt the hiring standards, or is just awareness for the commission? What is your preference?
I'm just making the commission aware that we are going to start taking a look and changing our hiring qualifications to see how it works. Obviously, you have to approve the list once we make the list, and you'll know who has what qualifications. But also let you know that we are doing our own through GeoGov starting tomorrow. At staff tomorrow, we'll talk about CVTC and Fox Valley. We know that we're going to get out there and really promote the Stevens Point Fire Department and the positive image that this place should have.
I think it would also be appropriate. I would like you to add this component to your monthly report to the commission. Give us just a verbal update on this is something the commission was briefed on March 9th. I'd like an update as to, okay, what happened by the time we meet again in April. And I'd like this to become a regular component as far as what you're sharing with the commission to know if this strategy is successful.
Yes, sir.
All right. With that said, let's move to the fire chief and EMS report. I have a chief's report. Chief Gemza, I don't have a report from you, but I haven't looked at my computer in a couple of hours. So Bob, you have the floor.
Well, I had to follow up with Chief Zenner because of the fine job he did with his annual report and the fine job that the Stevens Point Police Department did in 2020. Our annual report will come to the PFC in April. So now we know what the competition is. We got to maybe go back and rethink some things so we can do it a little bit better than the chief did.
So what you're telling the commission is you liked his color scheme on the graphs.
Yes, he did very well. And the IT person that I am, I think I can design some of that color scheme.
You have the floor. Go ahead, Bob.
Some of the stuff that should be noted is that we are back out doing fire inspections. The state had given us kind of a relief or relax, and now they said starting in April, there's no more get out and do it. So we've been out doing some fire inspections. As Chief Gemza says, we're going to talk tomorrow about the new CDC guidelines for people that have been vaccinated and how we can operate. It's been pretty busy. On this report, there's 3 Metro fire calls. That busy Tower Ladder 2 was at 2 fires on Sunday night and early Monday morning, both down in Clover. I know that what we're excited about here, and since you don't have it, and Chief Gemza knows more about it, is our cardiac arrest registry to enhance survival, our CARES. I think this is something that's really going to help us in the community, and I think Chief Gemza can explain it better than I.
Joseph?
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Commissioner Westcott. So we've signed up and registered for the CARES registry component of data tracking. This is specific to cardiac arrest survival rates. This works through this well, actually, it's a national setup. The state has purchased the licensure for the registry for all EMS systems, and hospitals also participate in it along with dispatch. This is a statistical way of systematically tracking the data when it comes down to cardiac arrests. Our first responders have all been put into it. We've been put into it, and our local hospitals have been put into it. So what will happen is we will enter data. The CARES registry will then take that data and they will put it into different regions. And what's cool about this is that we'll be able to look at regionally across, like in central Wisconsin. We'll be able to look at the state of Wisconsin. We'll be able to look at the region of the United States, like the Midwest. And we'll also be able to compare ourselves nationally to how people are doing with cardiac arrest. And the nice thing about this is it makes it easy for myself to pull that data out. So if we want to see how we're doing and be able to train our personnel in like, hey, here's where we are with compressions. This is where the national average is, or this is where, you know, the regional is. We'll be able to pull that data out. We'll also be able to give reports on how well we are doing with sudden cardiac arrest survival rates, kind of like what we had done before when we were doing it ourselves. Now we have a little more credible system to say this is, we know for a fact that we are as good as Seattle, or we are as good as Houston or San Antonio when it comes to sudden cardiac arrest survival. The state stepped in, they paid for that. That would have cost us a little over $1,000 for us to participate in this. This is the gold standard of sudden cardiac arrest data reporting. So we're pretty excited. We're signed up. We're good to go. Shane Westfall, firefighter paramedic Shane Westfall, has gone to class about the tutorial about entering data. I have also, and we're going to have a couple more people in there to make sure our data can be sent in correctly.
Is Seattle still the gold standard for survival, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're hoping that Stevens Point will be after we get ours in, but yes.
What is Seattle's rate right now?
That I do not know at this point, right? I mean, I'd be amiss to tell you what that is. I could tell you what it was, but at the end of the next month, hopefully, I should be able to sit down and I guess, Commissioner Westcott, how would you like that to be done? Once the data is ready, I would like to, it would be an honor and privilege to make sure the commission got the data that they were interested in.
Absolutely.
And so I was wondering, is there a commissioner you'd like me to work with to make sure that we get it put out the way it is, or how would you guys like to go about that?
Well, let me volunteer your liaison, Commissioner Kirschling, to work with you. Joe told me just the other day he's looking for yet another project. So thank you, Commissioner Kirschling. But that's certainly the survival rate and the reporting data. I mean, I don't need to tell my colleagues on the commission how important that is. We track the state on a national level, state level. Is Houston now number 2?
Houston and San Antonio are really high up there in their being progressive in how they administer sudden cardiac arrest and
and of course the key, as my colleagues know here, is a survival rate and how effective, and it starts with that first responder, or it starts with the individuals who can arrive on scene before the EMTs get there, or the police officers who are trained in this city. So it is really a very intricate process, and that we're very interested in how that. You anticipate that data to be updated monthly, Joseph? Quarterly?
We're still working on the finite items, but I guess really I don't want to hit you with too much information. You know, you can get information overload. So it's going to be, if we think it's quarterly would be fine also. If yearly is what you want, we'd be more, you know, the information's only good if you want it and are willing to digest it, correct?
Do you really believe you can overload me with data, Joseph?
I can only hope that one day you would say enough.
Have you ever heard me say that to you?
No, that's why I'm more than willing to try.
I think quarterly is enough. What do my colleagues think?
Quarterly would be fine.
Quarterly's good. And if you get any interesting data that you don't want to wait a quarter on, you can just go ahead and email it to me, Joe.
Sure.
All right, Chief Finn, you still have the floor for the report. Thank you, Chief Gamsa.
Okay, also last week, Chief Moody and Division Chief Howard went to Illinois and picked up our fire extinguisher prop. But due to our annual report in April, we will give a presentation on it and shoot some videos and make a presentation to you in May, if that's okay.
Good.
This was something that the city put in a capital, and now we're excited to have that. And with this weather breaking, hopefully, and the guys finishing up their paramedic refresher course, we're going to get out and do some hands-on training outside now.
Everybody know what we're talking about here? I just realized, Bob, maybe you better spend 10 seconds to talk about what was picked up. I just realized that, you know, folks who watch this may not have any idea what we're talking about here.
Trevor, you picked it up. You can tell them what it looks like. I haven't seen it yet. I was on vacation yesterday, so I haven't seen it yet.
Trevor.
It's and actually firefighter paramedic Shane Westfall and Drew Egan, the fire marshal, did a lot of research and actually put this all together. I just went down to get trained in the use, but essentially what it is it is a fire extinguisher. It looks just like a fire extinguisher, but it has a mount on the top that attaches an iPad, and you can create a scenario in any environment that you're in, and basically make a fire in that room. It will map the room. Then you can make a fire in that room, and then you can train people on how to properly use the fire extinguisher. As far as the pass technique is what we teach, where you pull the pin, aim, squeeze, and sweep. And if you do in this, it's on the iPad, or it's essentially he called it, it's not artificial and augmented reality. It's not it's called augmented reality. So it uses the environment that it's in. And if you do any of those things wrong, if you turn your back on the fire after it's out, it will fail you, so that people get used to and are trained on how to use a fire extinguisher properly.
And how do you plan to use it in the community?
We actually have been requested multiple times. We do a lot of trainings for university and different businesses within the community, as far as training on fire extinguishers and how to use them properly. And in the past, we've had to use, I don't know if anybody's been involved with the fire pan. We used to have to light a fire in a parking lot or somewhere and refill fire extinguishers, or real-ish fire extinguishers. We no longer have to go through that process. Now this extinguisher allows us to go out and do the training with one individual. It's less manpower intensive and easier to use and relevant training.
Thank you. Chief Fenn, you still have the floor.
My understanding, this is state of the art, that this will be used a lot in our pub ed. And we're excited to have it and see what happens.
And with the new technology, we are the first department in the Midwest to have one. The other, I believe, there's 6 others in the US. I believe they're all in Texas.
Great.
Other than that, if you have any questions for me.
Any questions for Chief Finn? Commissioner Ostrowski.
Chief Finn, I noticed in the paper the article about the fire on Main Street the other day. It said 5 departments. Who decides how many departments to be called in? I mean, how does that go about?
Any report of a house fire or flames in a building, smoke in a building, in Stevens Point, the village of Plover, the town of Hall, all 3 of us respond. Automatic aid.
Is some of that they go to man the firehouse while our guys are on a fire, or is they all respond to the scene?
They all respond to the scene. Okay, and then at that fire, when you start running out of manpower or tasks are you're going to need relief, we have MABUS, Wisconsin MABUS, mutual aid box alarm alerting system, and it's pre-designed that When you need help, you can ask for a box, a second alarm, third alarm, fourth alarm, and there's cards. And then at that particular fire, it was decided that they were going to need a little help. So we requested a box, and that gave us Park Ridge and Rudolph.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering about that.
Are there other questions for the fire chief or Assistant Chief Gemza or our training officer? If not, I'll move approval of the reports. Thank you to all. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Ostrowski. All in favor of accepting the fire chief's report, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Joseph, I didn't mean to overlook you. Did you have anything you wanted to add to the EM side of this? I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I do not. I apologize. I'm not sure why you didn't get my report ahead of time. It has been submitted. If you guys have any questions after you look at it, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to answer.
And I may very well have it, Joseph. I should have checked on my computer before I said that.
I understand, but again, if you guys got questions, I'm here. You know where I work, so.
You bet. All right, with that, I'm gonna move to the police chief's report. Members of the commission, you have Interim Chief Zenner's report. Again, I would add to what we talked about earlier, compliments to all involved in the compilation of the annual report that was presented earlier today. I'm encouraged to hear that we're going to distribute that to the mayor, to the alders, and then place it on the city website. Chief Zenner, what would you like to highlight from your report for the commission?
And just inform that has gone out to the mayor and the alders already. A couple things I wanted to address, point out. One, didn't make it into the chief's report, but yesterday at committees, the new contract with the officers passed through, so it'll be hopefully ratified at Common Council, and that would be a 3-year contract for our officers. Notes of interest, we talked about earlier in the annual report, officers that have retired. We did have another one of our senior officers pull the plug. Very good friend of mine, excellent officer, Officer Dana Krakowski is retired. You'll be missed, but as well say, we're all replaceable. And we have 2 new officers that started out, Cole O'Neill and a Josh McCluth have begun the training process. They're in step 1 as we speak. I did have some conversations with Commissioner Carlson. We have a bit of a situation taking place right now with ammunition. I know we had a capital request that was awarded, and we have new 9mm handguns that are coming our way. Unfortunately, we may have the handguns, but not be able to implement them as we have ammo shortage. This was not a good year to be in a transition because last year we decided to let our 40 caliber ammunition run low because we were going to be transitioning to a 9mm. Suddenly we're in the middle of a situation that we're short, no different than other departments. We were able to secure some 40 caliber ammunition as that's being transitioned out of law enforcement. It's a less popular round, but even that we paid at probably 3 times the going rate. We have enough. That being said, 9mm ammunition, we probably will not have that in stock. They said you can expect a year wait. So thinking of that, I thought, well, geez, let's go ahead and buy next year's too and get on the docket. They won't even let you take in an order for next year. It's a shortage and we're going to have to get through it. But right now, we do have obviously enough ammunition to go through. We did have to modify some of our training. Matter of fact, our SWAT personnel are out today and we're doing just a bunch of dry fire exercises, more maneuverable training and not at the range. But our range instructor Lieutenant Mueller has us on just readjusted some of our training, and keeps us up to date. And I'm sure he'll have some excellent training for us. Otherwise, just not live fire.
Excuse me, Chief. I'm sorry to interrupt. Maybe I missed this. Is the shortage caused because so many departments are converting to this type of weapon and ammunition, or is there some other reason, granular reason for this?
No, there's a lot of things that probably go into it, similar to a lot of toilet paper being off the shelves back in the day. There's a lot of ammo off the shelves, and it's just not.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
a lot of it's been hoarded, and with COVID and everything, that of course may come into play too. With the amount of ammo that's being manufactured isn't quite up to what it was before. But yes, Bob.
Tom, do I understand, however, the 9mm revolvers will be coming in, just that we won't be able to put them into use, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Hopefully, the shortage, we do have some 9mm that was ordered last year on last year's budget. So we should maybe have about 2,000 rounds coming in. But the large amount of ammo was going to be out of this budget. And of course, we don't purchase that until after the new year. And as soon as the new year came out, the manufacturers basically put a 1-year delivery date on it. So it could come in magically early, but that's what we're being told at this point.
Basically, what if I understood this correctly, what are you in your management team doing to assure quality control of some of the ammunition isn't, I think, as you said, quite up to what it was a few years ago? I mean, what type of internal quality control will be reviewing that we're not deploying basically an inferior product?
No, the product's fine. There's just changes in the velocities, and law enforcement, like other business, is cyclical. When I was here, it was 9mm. Then it was all about the bigger, different ideologies come into play. It's changed to 40 calibers. Now the thought process is going back to 9mm. I'm sure by the time Cole O'Neill, our new hire, is brought in, they'll be back up to 40 caliber. So it's just the ebbs and flows of the system and how they change through the years. So the product isn't different, and the numbers right now is what our concern is, and how many times we'd be able to train. We've gone up to 6 training sessions per year. We're obviously not going to be able to maintain that. That said, there's certainly different training that we can do for firearms, scenario-based training, safety protocols, all of that. And we have an excellent training cadre. I have no doubt our training will be as top of the line. We just might not be throwing as many rounds down the range. That being said, we were able to secure 40 caliber ammunition. Actually, Mid-State Technical College, their academy, has also transitioned to 9mm, and they had some extra 40 caliber ammunition that we were able to secure. We just had to make an agreement that we would supply them with 9mm ammo when the floodgates opened up again. So,
okay.
Tom, does the whole department switch from 40 to 9, or is it a partial, certain officers do and some don't, or is it a complete switchover?
The entire department. A lot goes into that. That's an excellent question. Because not only are you going to new ammunition, we also have to have armors that are trained in that particular handgun. So it's that training, depending on what weapon it is, could involve annual training. Surprisingly, not a whole lot that changes, but when you deal with anything such as a handgun, you're dealing with liability. So you're going to have that annual type training. So for us to maintain 9mm, 40 caliber, 380. You start dealing with armors that need to have multi-training situations. It's just difficult to keep up with.
Does it also affect the holsters also?
The holsters, the magazines, all your equipment, the accessories that go with it. We have a flashlight attachments. All of that needs to be replaced.
Tom, who is the department armorer now?
The master armorer is Sergeant Long. We have Sergeant Paschal and Officer Plummer.
Wow, okay.
Please continue with your report, Chief.
Yes. We had a couple drug overdoses we talked about earlier. One unfortunate death that we had, and another particular call of interest. It was actually, I don't know if it was a husband and wife, but a male-female at an area hotel. The male subject went into an overdose. The female was able to call 911, but she went into an overdose herself. As officers arrived at the scene, Officer Alex Beach performed CPR, Narcan on the male subject, and we did have a life-saving effort there, and he did receive a life-saving award that was presented to him this past month. Also, we had a SWAT call out. I'm sure many of you heard about that. Unfortunately, it was at the end of last month, January 30th, and didn't make the annual report. It is listed in this month's report for a use of force. That was a significant call on the north side of town, quite a bit of media coverage on it. Our SWAT team was assisted by, obviously, Plover is part of our Metro SWAT team, and we also had the Portage County Sheriff's Office there. It was a significant call out. It was certainly drawn out. Hats off to our SWAT team. Difficult time to be sitting in a situation such as that started going well into the 10th hour, 11th hour, and it was resolved. I don't want to say peacefully, but the best case scenario end result took place. So excellent job by our SWAT team, in particular, Lieutenant John Moss. He's the commander of our SWAT team. Very proud of the operation and how they conducted themselves on the scene. Any questions?
Any questions for Chief Zenner on his report? And
Just one quick one, Tom. Under mental health report here, you got 23 checks and then you got 10, 6, and 3. Is those the 19 in that 23? Not in addition to, right?
That's, in most cases, yeah, that would be all within that 23.
Okay, so the commitments were within the actual welfare checks.
I believe so. I would have to check with that information that I get is compiled by our crisis intervention officer, Officer Radsick. I'm fairly certain those numbers are, but I would have to check with them, and next month I could clarify if he has a couple where he's putting those numbers together.
I'll assume that same thing, but if there's a change, just give me a jingle, would you please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chief, would you update the commission, please, on the K-9 officer who is also a certified trainer? What's going on there?
Absolutely. He's back on the road. Officer Blue and his dog Barry are active out on patrol. Those names go well together. That's his nickname, by the way. Blueberry. But we are actually, in Assistant Chief Cousteau may be able to even answer that better. But we're in the process of putting together some future training opportunities. I don't know if you had a chance to, I think it was on Channel 7. Hopefully it was at 9, but we had an excellent in-depth interview that was put together. It was about a month in planning. Lieutenant Dana Williams worked very closely with the news reporter, and it was an excellent presentation and really focused on Sergeant Blue and the training that he received, and moving forward, what we're going to be able to provide our neighboring police agencies. At this point, I don't believe we have one scheduled. We're in the training process of putting that together.
Good, thank you. Any questions for Chief Zenner?
I move approval of the police chief's report.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 11. I will move that we adjourn. The Police and Fire Commission will adjourn to closed session pursuant to Section 19.85 1C of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering the employment of a public employee over which the commission exercises jurisdiction and responsibility for, including discussion regarding final candidates for the position of police chief and authorization for continuation of the hiring process. Is there a second?
So moved.
Kirschling, second.
I actually, good job, but I think Commissioner Carlson was quicker than both of you. So we have a motion. It has been seconded by Commissioner Carlson. Leanne, would you please call the roll to move into closed session?
Carlson,
Yes.
Kirschling,
Yes.
Moore,
Aye.
Ostrowski,
Yes.
Westcott.
Yes, I'm also going to invite Alderperson Kneebone to remain with us for a few minutes, and Chief Zenner, if you'd like to remain, that would be great, but we'll say goodbye to
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.